Hey, David here again with another Brewster's Millions of Rants, and I'm going to stick with the guitar tone and amps kind of discussion here with part two. And I've also changed amps. I moved away from the Vampire, and I decided to kind of hook up the Boss Katana 50. And I'm also going to play around a little bit with this little Blackstar Fly, just to give you a really good kind of demo, I guess, or demonstration of you know dialing in different amps, trying to find your sound using different amps and different equipment. So anyway, the Boss Katana 50 actually has been a really interesting purchase, and I picked it up last year, and it really is kind of the modern version of the Behringer Vampire I was playing around with last time. And it's very versatile. It has a lot of different bells and whistles kind of built-in effects, built-in you know uh, tone options and amp options, and it's a really cool amp, especially as far as like bang for the buck goes. I really haven't found any amps on the market that are this affordable, but also this flexible and durable too. Before I start playing and demonstrating some things, this is obviously a rant series, so I'm going to talk a little bit here, and I'm just going to mention a few things that I left out in the previous episode, and I'm just kind of sharing my thoughts and feelings about a few things. So I'm not preaching, I'm not, declaring war against somebody, or I'm not pointing fingers at anyone. I'm just talking, and you can listen to me and agree, or you can disagree, and that's cool. I'm not trying to pick on people or start fights, but I have noticed a trend, like in the last, like 3 to 5 years. And this is normal because I've been playing guitar long enough, and I'm sure, some older viewers out there could probably back me up on this. But I've been playing guitar long enough and noticed changes and trends and equipment and different guitars, different amps, different pedals, different ideas about tone and effects and sound. I've seen it morph and change, over the years and decades for sure. Enough, where I had no idea initially that things were going to change and mutate so much. Back when I was a teenager, I had no idea. I was curious about pedals and curious about different amps, and of course I'd go in a music store and lust after guitars, but I didn't really know very much because I hadn't played for very long. I hadn't really learned the tools and the tricks of the trade, I guess. So over the years, I've kind of discovered that there are patterns. There was a time where it seemed like everybody was using Marshall amps, and then everybody was using rack systems, like the 88 preamp, or other preamps like that. For a while, it seemed like everybody was using Mesa Boogie, and I've noticed like trends with guitars too. I mean, it seemed like there was a period where everybody was playing Paul Reed Smith. Now it seems like everyone's playing Kiesel. Um, there's Kemper amps, and they've become very, very popular. The Axe Effects, preamps become very popular. So a lot of players out there are flocking to the same equipment. The same amp, same guitar, same pickup, same strings, same pick, same cable, same strap. It's like they've almost lost their identity in a way, as far as being an individual. Finding their own tools. It's almost like they're just mimicking what they see other people using, and they buy the exact same stuff. And that's a normal habit that I've noticed over the years, but it seems rampant these days, where it seems like everyone is doing that. I've been playing long enough, and I've experimented with enough, different amps over the years, that I have a really good idea, before I even turn the amp on. At least, looking at the knobs, I can usually kind of get pretty close to a sound that I, could use or, work with. Before I even really hear it, I can just kind of look at the knobs and decide, what I need to cut or boost or whatever. So, one thing I was going to say about the controls and the layout on an amp is just because it shows that it goes to 10 or 11 or whatever, it doesn't mean you need to set it that way. It's almost like the speedometer in a car. Just because the speedometer says the car can go 140 miles an hour, that doesn't mean you should drive that fast. It's just I guess, a reference to show you like the potential, just like on an amp, like the potential of a certain setting or a certain tone. But you don't want to dime everything on 10. I mean, this isn't 1967, and I'm pretty sure your name isn't Jimi Hendrix. So That was a different time. That was a different mindset and approach. So if you're looking for great sound, yeah, you can, put a Marshall half stack in a room and seal up the room and turn it up all the way and stick a microphone in front of it, and it's going to sound great. But in most practical, situations, that's not, gonna cut it. That's not normal. Like you can't go play at church with a half stack, blasting. You can't go to a little club somewhere, and play a gig for 13 people in a little dive bar with a half stack, wide open, because it's going to clear the room and they're never going to ask you to come back. They're going to be like, you were way too loud. Sorry, guy. So unless you're looking for that I'm going to peel the paint off the walls tone, then you have to learn how to set your amp and set your pedals and set your guitar, and get things where you want it. Okay, you can see I've got the lead channel as far as the amp type selected. There's the gain, volume. There's the EQ. You can see I've dialed the EQ way back. We've got a little bit of delay, a little bit of reverb, master, and I'm on the 50 watt setting. So now bridge pickup with that tone, setup. It's got kind of a honk, definitely compared to the Vampire for sure. It's got a little different sound. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play with the treble knob first. Because one thing I don't like about treble, I don't like that harsh kind of hiss. So I almost always roll treble back, like way further than most people usually set treble. Because I don't like this. Don't like that at all. So I literally turn the treble back until it hits this kind of sweet spot to my ear. Just somewhere around there. No, I don't like a lot of bass either. I don't want it to woof. And then really from there, you just adjust the mid depending on where you like to have your mids. Do you want it scooped? Do you want the mids boosted a little bit? Be able to hear like note definition, like in chords, something like that. Because I definitely like unusual chord voicings and sounds and mixing fretted notes, with open strings and drone strings. So I don't want a lot of distortion. I don't want to just rip it up like Kerry King or somebody. And some people out there want that much distortion. That's fine. You can make it sound like a chainsaw if you want to, but just for my personal preference, I'm always shooting more for just kind of like a standard rock tone for the most part, And I guess standard rock tone, a little edgier than a standard rock tone, but that's the basic ballpark. Now, one little extra tone tip I'm going to share here is, especially if you're playing like a Strat or a Tele or a guitar, that has a humbucker, 2 single coils or maybe 2 humbuckers in a single coil, where you have, some tonal option with your pickup selector. One thing I like to do is I'll set the amp, pretty close to where I think, I'll probably want it. And then I'll test the neck pickup because I'm kind of a stickler for getting a distinct sound with the neck pickup. I don't want it to be too bassy. I want a little bit of bite in that neck pickup. Okay, and then once I have the neck, pretty much where I want it, then I'll immediately check the bridge pickup and see what it sounds like. up between the neck and the bridge and try to, dial it in, pretty close to where I'd like to have it. All right, now, and just for the sake of comparison, let's do the same kind of thing with this little Blackstar Fly, a little portable, battery-powered amp. And even though the EQ options aren't as detailed as they are on, say, either the combo amps that I've featured so far, there is an EQ setting, like a one knob, the ISF, Blackstar tone shaping there. So being familiar with their ISF shaping, I already know that I want it somewhere above, 12 o'clock, because I know it's brighter on the lower settings and it's a little warmer and bassier on the higher settings. And I'm going to go ahead and crank up the gain just to kind of mimic, some of these high overdrive sounds. So you can see there's the settings. I'm going to turn the delay off, but here's what it sounds like. And I'm just kind of guesstimating where I want those settings, but that's going to be pretty close to where I want things. I can kind of fine tune it from there. So I know I don't want that bright hiss. So I'm going to cut that out. It's a little bit too much distortion for me, really. So I hate to sound like some guitar tone, like conspiracy theorist or something, but I do feel like, it's almost like a stars align, kind of situation. But like, a certain guitar in a certain player's hands plugged into a certain amplifier or some pedals, creates a very magical and special sound. And somebody else with the exact same gear, different hands and like a different ear, may not get the same results. And I know just, from my own personal experience, like when I was in school in Atlanta, Steve Morse came to the school and did a clinic, and everybody was, so excited. And I've always loved Steve Morse. I've loved Steve Morse, since I was in high school. But I remember he came and did a clinic, and everybody was stoked. And it was him and Dave LaRue. And he came, he did a sound check, and we got to, kind of sit in, during a sound check. And I remember he brought his pedal board, he brought his guitar, but then he was using, school amps. And on the stage we had like a 5150, like the original, 5150 head. And there was a Yamaha that I think Soldano had modified. So there was a Yamaha head and the 5150 head, but he didn't want either one of those. And I remember when he said, "No, you got anything else?" And I remember all the students were so confused because everybody picked the 5150 when we played, but Steve didn't really want to use that. And they pulled out this old PV, it was like a VTM 50 head that none of the students ever wanted to plug into that amp. And it was there, but nobody used. It was like this old neglected amp that nobody wanted. And Steve Morse plugged into it, set up, did a sound check, and it sounded exactly like Steve Morse. We were all just like, why is he using that old crappy PV? And kaboom, it sounded amazing, and we were so confused. All right, well, hopefully you're getting something from this new, Brewster's Millions of Rants, which I'm not really going to rant. I'm not going to be harsh and critical of anything. I'm just going to talk and play and kind of demonstrate, some extra things that I haven't really been able to talk about, like in chord play or 3-for-all. So just some bonus content material, and this will be really random. So I'll rant, who knows, I'll rant about the Beatles or I'll rant about picks or whatever. But this will be very random content. So if there's anything you'd like to hear me talk about, go ahead and, suggest it and fire away, because I'll totally take, pretty much any request I get on Brewster's Millions of Rants. So rock on, leave me some feedback and comments, and subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back very soon. Thank you.